I returned home after 20 years to say goodbye to my dying father. But instead, he told me a truth that ruined everything I thought I knew about myself. I never planned to go back home. In fact, I spent the last 20 years doing everything I could to erase that place from my life, like a stain you keep scrubbing even after the color is gone. I changed cities, jobs, friends, habits, anything to make sure I never had to face the ghosts I left behind in that small town. Yet there I was, sitting in a rented car at the side of the highway, staring at the crooked wooden sign that welcomed visitors, Hilford, population 3,182. A town frozen in time, like it had been waiting for me to return. The call came 3 days earlier, late at night, when the world felt softer and more fragile. A nurse from the Hilford Community Hospital told me my father had collapsed, that his condition was serious, that he had asked for me by name. I almost hung up. I almost pretended the connection dropped, that I didn't hear her say he might not have much time. But hearing my father's name spoken by a stranger stirred something in me, a discomfort I've spent years burying. I told myself it was duty, not care, not love. I told myself I was only going because I didn't want the guilt of ignoring a dying man. But as I sat there, watching the road disappear into the town I once called home, I felt something heavy in my chest. Fear. Anger. Nostalgia. Maybe all three. Returning meant facing things I swore I'd never face again. Memories I locked away. Nights filled with shouting. The silence afterward. The things left unsaid. And the one secret that had torn our family apart so violently that none of us ever recovered. I gripped the steering wheel and took a deep breath. The air smelled like pine trees and cold dirt, exactly the way I remembered. The same air I once ran through as a kid, trying to escape the chaos inside our walls. It felt wrong that everything looked the same, while I felt like a stranger in my own past. As I drove into town, familiar corners flashed by like scenes from a life I wasn't sure belonged to me anymore. The old gas station where my brother and I used to buy candy. The church with its cracked steps. The rusted playground that always felt too empty. And then, at the end of a quiet street shaded by tall oaks, the house. Our house. The paint was peeling, the roof sagging, the windows clouded with dust. Time had gnawed at it, just like it had gnawed at us. Seeing it again made my throat tighten. Memories I didn't want, memories I thought I'd outgrown, flooded back. The fights. The slammed doors. The nights spent lying awake, listening to my father's footsteps pacing the halls. My mother crying behind closed doors. The moment everything changed. I turned off the engine and sat for a moment, staring at the door I once slammed behind me as a teenager when I swore I'd never return. It felt strange walking those steps again, each one heavier than the last. When I knocked, I didn't expect anyone to answer. But after a few seconds, the door opened just a crack. It was Mrs. Halburn, our old neighbor. Her face looked older, carved by time, but her eyes were the same sleepy blue I remembered. She gasped softly when she saw me. "So he finally called you," she said, not even bothering to hide the judgment in her voice. "I came as soon as I heard," I replied, though even I wasn't sure if that was the truth. She stepped aside. "He's inside. He's not the man you remember." I followed her into the living room. The air was thick and stale, heavy with the scent of medicine and dust. And there he was, my father, lying on the couch like a man 3 times his age. His skin pale, hands trembling slightly, eyes closed. He looked small, fragile, almost unrecognizable. My chest tightened unexpectedly. I wasn't ready for this. He opened his eyes slowly, as if waking from a dream. When he saw me, something flickered across his face. Relief? Regret? I couldn't tell. "You came," he whispered, his voice a faint echo of the man who once filled this house with thunderstorms. I did. We stared at each other for a long moment. There was so much to say, and yet neither of us spoke. The weight between us was too dense, too old, too familiar. Finally he whispered, "There are things you need to know, before it's too late." And in that moment, I realized something unsettling. I wasn't just here to say goodbye. I was here to face the truth I'd spent 2 decades running from. My father insisted on sitting up when I entered the room, even though the effort made his breathing uneven. Mrs. Halburn placed a blanket over his legs and gave me a sympathetic look before quietly slipping out the door, leaving us alone in a house that suddenly felt too small for everything left unsaid. I sat in the old armchair across from him, the one he used to collapse into after long days at the mill. The spring still creaked in the same familiar rhythm, a sound I never expected to hear again. For a moment neither of us spoke, and I wondered if maybe he'd changed his mind, if the things I needed to know had been nothing more than a dramatic moment of weakness. But then his hand trembled toward the table, reaching for a glass of water he couldn't quite grasp. Without thinking, I stood and held it for him. Our eyes met briefly as he drank, and something inside me twisted, the way a child might feel when confronted with the fragile humanity of a parent they had always feared. When he finished, he leaned back with a heavy exhale. "How long are you staying?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "As long as I need to." That made him smile faintly, though there was no joy in it. "You never needed us before." The words stung, partly because they were true, and partly because I knew he meant them differently than how I heard them. I was about to reply when he suddenly closed his eyes, his face tightening as if he were reliving something painful. "You know," he murmured, "I kept expecting you to walk through that door for years. Even after everything." I swallowed hard. "You didn't exactly give me a reason to come back." His eyes opened, not angry, just tired. "I know. And I'm not asking for forgiveness." "Then what are you asking for?" He hesitated, his breathing slowing. A chance to explain. Those words, simple as they were, felt heavier than everything that had come before. I leaned back, unsure if I was ready for whatever truth he thought he owed me. But before I could respond, a sudden knock echoed through the house, startling both of us. My father flinched. Actually flinched. Are you expecting someone? I asked. He shook his head slowly, his face pale. No. No one should know you're here. The knock came again. Harder this time. I stood, heart racing in a way I couldn't fully explain. When I opened the door, a tall man in a dark coat stood on the porch. His eyes scanned me, and for a moment I felt as though he was searching for something, recognition, maybe, or resemblance. You must be his son, he said. Who are you? The man didn't answer immediately. He looked past me, into the dim living room where my father sat watching, stiff and alert. Then the man tilted his head, as if acknowledging a shared history hidden beneath decades of dust. I'm Dr. Keller, he finally said. Your father's physician. My father's posture loosened a little, not relaxed, but no longer alarmed. I stepped aside and let Dr. Keller in. He walked with the confidence of someone familiar with sickness, someone used to bad news. As he checked my father's vitals, the room filled with a thick silence that neither of us dared break. When he finished, he turned to me. He shouldn't be alone, he said gently. His condition is worse than he lets on. I figured, I murmured. My father shot me a brief glare, but said nothing. Dr. Keller hesitated before continuing. He's been refusing certain treatments. Pain management, specifically. My father's jaw tensed. I don't need them. You do, the doctor replied calmly. Otherwise you wouldn't be calling your son after 20 years. The air thickened. My father looked away, unable to respond. The doctor packed his bag and stepped toward the door, pausing only to place a hand on my shoulder. He didn't call you because he's dying, he whispered. He called you because there's something he wants to settle before he does. I stared at him, trying to read between the lines. Do you know what it is? He hesitated. No. But whatever he's hiding, it's been eating him alive. With that, he left. The house seemed quieter after the door closed, like the walls themselves were waiting for me to react. I sat back down, and my father avoided my gaze, staring instead at a crack in the ceiling as if searching for answers in its crooked lines. Why didn't you tell me about your condition sooner? I asked. He exhaled slowly. Because I wasn't sure if you'd care. You're still not giving me a chance to. That made him look at me, really look at me, for the first time since I walked through the door. His voice was low when he finally spoke. If I tell you everything, he said, you'll see me differently. Maybe, I admitted. But maybe that's what needs to happen. He turned away, his eyes glassy and distant. Your mother, she tried to tell you once. Do you remember? My stomach dropped. Of course I remember. He nodded slowly, as if confirming something he'd always suspected. I stopped her. I shouldn't have. What were you trying to protect me from? I asked. He closed his eyes. Not what, he whispered. Who? My heart slowed. Then stumbled. Who? I pressed. He looked at me, fear flickering across his face like a shadow. You, he said quietly. I was trying to protect you from yourself. The room tilted. Everything I thought I knew about my childhood, about him, about my mother, about why I ran away, shifted in one impossible moment. And I realized something chilling. This wasn't a story about what he did. It was a story about what I might have done. For a long moment, I just stared at him. The words didn't make sense at first, they felt misplaced, like he had accidentally spoken someone else's truth instead of his own. Protect me from myself? What did that even mean? I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. My throat felt tight, my chest heavy, as if a part of me already knew what he meant, and was terrified to hear it confirmed. He looked anxious, almost panicked, as if he regretted saying it the moment the words left his mouth. His fingers twisted the edge of the blanket, his breathing uneven again. I had never seen him afraid. Angry, yes. Distant, always. But afraid? That was new. And for reasons I couldn't yet name, it made my pulse quicken. What are you talking about? I finally asked, forcing the words out. Protect me from myself? That doesn't make sense. He didn't answer right away. He glanced toward the window, where the fading afternoon light cast long shadows across the living room floor. For a moment, I wondered if he was searching for a distraction, or for a way to avoid the conversation altogether. But then he looked at me with that same haunted expression. You were different as a kid, he said quietly. Not bad. Not broken. But different. I stiffened. Different how? He took a shaky breath. You don't remember, do you? Remember what? His eyes closed. The night your mother tried to tell you the truth. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I remembered the night he was talking about. The last big argument before everything fell apart. I remembered my mother sobbing in the hallway, her hands shaking, telling me she needed to explain something, only for my father to pull her away, his voice low and furious. I remembered the look she gave me before the door slammed shut. A look that had followed me for the rest of my life. She said she needed to protect me, I whispered. But I never knew from what. My father nodded slowly. Because I stopped her. Why? My voice cracked. Why would you stop her from telling me the truth about my own life? He opened his eyes, and for a moment he looked older than he ever had, older than his sickness, older than the house around us. Because I was afraid of what it would do to you. And because I thought I could fix things before you ever had to know. Fix what? I demanded, louder this time. He flinched. Your temper. I froze. My temper. I repeated, almost laughing. I didn't have a temper. You did. You were the one yelling, slamming things, starting fights. No, he interrupted softly. I wasn't the only one. The room went very still. You had episodes, he continued. When you were younger. Moments when you'd black out. Lose control. You don't remember them, because afterward you were always different. Quiet. Confused. Scared. My whole body felt cold. That's not possible. It is, he said. You were 9 the first time. You were holding your brother's toy, one he refused to share with you, and you snapped. You didn't hurt him, but you scared him. And afterward you had no memory of it. That doesn't mean anything, I muttered, though my voice shook. It happened again when you were 12, he whispered. That time you pushed him down the stairs. My breath stopped. I shook my head violently. No. That wasn't me. He fell, he tripped. I remember. You remember what you told yourself happened, my father said. But your mother saw. She heard him scream. She found you standing at the top of the stairs, shaking. You couldn't even speak. I tried to stand, but my legs felt weak. I sat back down, feeling the room tilt slightly, as if the walls were bending. You're lying, I said, though the words felt hollow. You hated me. You blamed me for everything. Of course you'd say something like this. My father shook his head. If I wanted to hurt you, I would have done it years ago. I kept silent to protect you. To protect our family. But it tore us apart anyway. I began, but he cut me off. You never meant to, he said gently. You weren't a bad kid. You were hurting. You were overwhelmed. You were dealing with things we didn't understand. You had outbursts. Rage that came out of nowhere. And then, nothing. No memory. No explanation. He was describing someone else. Someone dangerous. Someone unstable. Someone I refused to believe I could have been. But deep down, buried beneath layers of denial, something inside me stirred. A memory. A flash of something. My brother crying. My mother's terrified face. My father shouting my name. I swallowed hard. If that's true, why didn't anyone get me help? We tried, he whispered. But every doctor said the same thing, trauma. Stress. A phase you'd grow out of. Your mother wanted to tell you everything when you turned 18, but I thought it would destroy you. I was wrong. I stared at him, my breathing shallow. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Why wait until now? Because I thought it was over, he said. But lately, the way you left. The way you isolated yourself. I started to wonder if the past wasn't as far behind you as I hoped. I'm not that person anymore, I whispered. His eyes softened. I know. But you deserve to know. Before I'm gone. For the first time I noticed the fear in his voice wasn't fear of me. It was fear for me. Fear of what I might discover. Fear of what the truth could unravel. I didn't tell you to blame you, he said. I told you because you need to understand what happened in this house. And because, there's more. My chest tightened. More. He nodded. Much more. And in that moment, I understood something terrifying. Everything I thought I knew about my childhood, about myself, was about to be ripped open. And I wasn't sure I wanted to know what lay beneath. I sat there, trying to breathe, but every inhale felt sharp, shallow, unsteady. My father's words hung in the air like smoke, thick, choking, impossible to ignore. I stared at him, waiting for him to say it was all exaggerated, or that I'd misunderstood, or that he was confused because of the medication. But he didn't look confused. He looked resigned. And that was somehow worse. You said, there's more, I whispered eventually, my voice barely audible, like it belonged to someone much younger, much more afraid. He nodded. Not with discomfort or hesitation, but with a kind of defeated acceptance, as if this moment had been approaching for decades and he had finally stopped trying to outrun it. I wasn't the only one who tried to hide things from you, he said. Your mother did, too. But not for the same reasons. She wanted you to know the truth. She believed it could help you heal. I didn't. I swallowed hard. Heal from what? He looked away, rubbing his temples like he was trying to fight off a memory. From the night everything changed. My heartbeat stumbled. The night she left. He closed his eyes as if the words physically hurt him. Yes. That night. My mind flooded with fragments, shouts echoing through the house, my mother sobbing, my father slamming a door, my brother hiding behind the staircase. But the memory was broken, scattered. I remembered my mother hugging me tightly, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then I remembered waking up the next morning to find her gone. You always told me she ran away, I said. He didn't correct me. You told me she abandoned us, I continued, my voice shaking. You said she couldn't handle the family anymore. He still didn't respond. Was that a lie? He opened his eyes. For a moment, he looked like he was debating whether to answer. Then he whispered. She didn't run away from us. She ran away from what she was afraid you might become. Something inside me cracked. What does that mean? I demanded, my voice rising despite me. You're talking in riddles. Just tell me what happened. He hesitated again, then reached slowly toward the drawer of the small side table next to him. His hand trembled the whole time, like he wasn't sure he had the strength to do whatever came next. When he pulled the drawer open, I saw a stack of old envelopes, yellowed, worn, edges curled. He dropped them onto the coffee table between us. What are these? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. His voice came out hoarse when he finally spoke. Letters, he said. From her. My breath hitched. From Mom. I thought. I never sent them to you, he said quietly. I never showed you. I kept them because I didn't want her confusing you. I wanted to protect you in the only way I knew how. I stared at the letters, unable to move. My fingers felt numb. Why didn't you give them to me? He let out a bitter exhale. Because she wrote the truth in them. I reached out slowly, almost afraid to touch them, as if they might burn me. The top envelope had my name on it, written in a familiar looping handwriting I hadn't seen in 20 years. My vision blurred. She wanted you to know everything, he said. She wanted to explain why she left, why she couldn't stay, why she was afraid. And you stopped her, I whispered. His jaw tightened. I thought it was the best thing for you. I thought if you never knew, you'd grow up normal. That you'd forget the episodes. That you'd forget what you did. I didn't do anything, I snapped reflexively, but it sounded weak, even to me. You don't know that, he said softly. I slammed my palm onto the table, the letters shifting under the force. You've been manipulating my entire life, I said, my voice cracking. You lied about Mom. You hid the letters. You hid my past. And now you expect me to sit here and just accept it? No, he replied quietly. I expect you to hate me. I've hated myself for years because of it. I froze. I didn't want to be the villain of your childhood, he continued, tears appearing in the corners of his eyes, tears I had never seen on him before. I tried to be strong. I tried to hold this family together. But the truth is, I broke it. I broke all of us. The room felt suffocating. The air thickened. My heart pounded in my ears. Read them, he whispered. Read what she wrote. Read what I couldn't tell you. My hands trembled as I picked up the first envelope. It was dated 2 months before she disappeared. I didn't open it yet. I couldn't. My throat was too tight, and my thoughts were spiraling. What if I don't want to know? I asked in a shaky voice. His gaze softened. The truth doesn't care what you want. It catches up eventually. I stared down at the letters, feeling a weight settle over me, a weight heavier than anger, heavier than confusion, heavier than the past I thought I'd escaped. What if the truth ruins everything? I whispered. It will, he said simply. But it will also set you free. For the first time, I saw him not as the man I spent my life running from, but as a man drowning in his own mistakes, desperate for redemption. And as the room vibrated with the unspoken past, I realized something terrifying. Whatever was written in those letters was going to change everything I thought I knew about myself. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the envelope in my hand. It felt heavier than paper should ever feel, as if the truth inside it carried decades of weight, guilt, fear, and silence. My father watched me but didn't speak. Maybe he knew that words wouldn't comfort me now. Maybe he knew nothing could. I finally tore the envelope open with a shaky breath. Inside was a folded letter, the paper soft and fragile from age. My mother's handwriting spilled across it in smooth, looping strokes, familiar, delicate, haunting. I hadn't seen her handwriting since I was a child. The moment my eyes traced the first line, my throat tightened. My sweet boy. I hope one day you'll read this when you're ready, truly ready. I don't know when that day will come, but I pray it does. I blinked hard, trying to steady myself. Even her words felt like a wound opening. There are things you don't remember, and things we never explain to you. None of it is your fault. I want you to know that first. None of it is your fault. My stomach twisted. I glanced at my father, but he only lowered his head, unable to look at me. When you were little, you used to have moments, sudden anger, sudden fear, sudden confusion. They scared you more than they scared us. After each episode, you'd cry for hours, terrified because you didn't understand what happened. I tried to get you help, but your father insisted it was just childhood stress. I should have fought harder. I froze. My chest tightened so much it hurt to breathe. You never meant to hurt anyone. You were hurting inside, and none of us knew how to reach you. I stayed up every night wondering if I was failing you. Maybe I was. Maybe that's why everything fell apart. My hands started shaking. I had to set the letter down for a moment, pressing my palms to my face. The memories weren't memories, they were flashes. Colors. Shouts. Blurry moments of fear. I had always chalked them up to nightmares. Childhood imagination. But reading her words, something inside me began to unravel. Are you okay? My father asked quietly. Don't, I muttered. Just, don't. I picked the letter back up, forcing myself to continue. Your brother still loved you, even when he was scared. And I loved you more than anything. I never blamed you for what happened in this house. I blamed myself. I blamed him. But never you. My father inhaled sharply, as if struck. I wish I could have stayed. I wish I could have protected you from what came next, from what he did, from what he hid, from how he changed. But I couldn't. And for that, I'm sorry. I hope you can forgive me someday. My heart dropped. What did you hide? I whispered, lowering the letter slowly. What did she mean by that? My father closed his eyes, his jaw tightening. Finish the letters. I want you to tell me, I snapped. You're not ready yet. I'm ready enough. He didn't budge. That infuriating calmness, something he'd used as a shield my entire childhood, now felt like a wall between me and the truth. I shoved the first letter down and grabbed another envelope. He didn't stop me. He just watched, defeated. The second letter wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to him. You promised me you'd tell him the truth when he was older. You promised you wouldn't bury this. You swore to me you wouldn't become the man I'm afraid you're becoming. Don't lie to him again. Don't hide what happened that night. What night? I demanded, my voice cracking. My father looked smaller than ever. Please, he whispered. One thing at a time. No, I said, my voice rising. Not one thing at a time. Not anymore. What happened that night? His hands tightened around the blanket. His eyes shifted toward the corner of the room, toward the old staircase leading to the second floor. A staircase I had avoided even looking at since I stepped foot in the house. That night, he began, voice thin, was the night your brother was hurt. I know he fell, I said. I know. You think he fell, he interrupted. But you don't remember. I didn't push him, I snapped instinctively. I wouldn't have. You didn't mean to, he said softly. I froze. The room began to spin, slow at first, then faster. You're lying, I whispered. He didn't look away. I wish I were. Suddenly the house felt too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses down on your shoulders, makes the air feel thick and heavy. The kind of quiet that tells you you've stepped into a truth you can't ever step back out of. I need a moment, I said, standing up. But my legs almost buckled beneath me. I staggered to the window, pushing it open, letting cold air flood the room. It didn't help. My thoughts were spiraling, memories rising and falling like waves I couldn't control. Why didn't anyone tell me? I asked, my voice trembling. Why did you let me hate myself without knowing the truth? Because I was afraid you would break, he said quietly. And because I was afraid of what you might remember. I turned back to him slowly. What else is in those letters? He swallowed. The truth about why your mother left. I looked down at the remaining unopened envelopes, my heart beat loud in my ears. And the truth about the night you chased your brother up those stairs. The floor felt like it shifted under my feet. I didn't chase him, I whispered. But the way my father looked at me told me everything. I had. And the letters were only the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake on the small couch in the living room, staring at the ceiling, listening to the slow, uneven rhythm of my father's breathing. The letters rested on the coffee table where I'd left them, their yellowed edges glowing faintly under the lamp. They felt alive somehow, as if the truth inside them was waiting, pulsing, demanding to be known. Every time I closed my eyes, images flickered behind them, shadows running up the staircase, my brother's small hands gripping the wooden rail, the sound of footsteps that might have been mine. Memories that never fully formed yet refused to disappear. By dawn, my head throbbed. I sat up, running my hands through my hair. The house around me felt colder, more unfamiliar than ever, like it wasn't the home I grew up in but a replica, one built from fractured memories and lies I hadn't known were lies. The walls seemed to whisper at me, accusing, reminding, urging me to look deeper. My father stirred, coughing softly. I stood and moved toward him, unsure whether I was worried about him or avoiding the letters, or both. He looked at me with tired eyes. You didn't sleep. How could I? I asked quietly. He exhaled shakily. You shouldn't read them all at once. It's too much. I don't have time, I replied. We don't have time. His gaze faltered at that, and guilt twisted inside me, guilt I didn't want to feel. He'd kept the truth from me for 2 decades. Guilt shouldn't belong to me. And yet, it did. Because part of me knew he hadn't been hiding the letters out of cruelty. He'd been hiding them out of fear. Fear of me. Fear for me. I need to know what happened, I said. All of it. He nodded slowly, like he'd been expecting that answer all along. After helping him sit up and drink some water, I returned to the table and picked up the next envelope. My hands trembled again, but I forced myself to open it. My boy. I saw something in your eyes tonight that terrified me. Something I can't ignore anymore. You were shaking. You kept saying you didn't know why you did it. You were crying so hard you couldn't breathe. And when I held you, you clung to me like you were afraid of yourself. I stopped reading for a moment, chest tightening. I don't blame you. I never have. I'm just scared because I don't know how to protect you. Your father thinks I'm making everything worse by trying to talk about it, but silence won't help. I know it won't. I swallowed. Your brother is scared of you right now, but he loves you. I need you to remember that. Love doesn't vanish because of one moment. We will help you. I will help you. I just need your father to understand what's happening to you. My voice cracked as I breathed out slowly. I didn't recognize the child she was describing. I didn't want to. I wanted to believe she was exaggerating or mistaken or blinded by emotion. But the feeling creeping up my spine told me she wasn't. I kept reading. Your father doesn't want to face the truth. He refuses to believe that something might be wrong, truly wrong. He's convinced you'll forget everything. But I see what he refuses to see. You're losing pieces of yourself. And I can't watch that happen. My throat tightened painfully. I'm scared for you. And I'm scared of what might happen if he keeps pretending nothing is wrong. I stopped. My eyes stung, and I blinked hard. My father watched me silently. So, I said, barely able to speak, she left because of me. No, he replied immediately. She left because of me. Because I wouldn't listen. Because I didn't want to accept that something might be happening to you that I couldn't control. He looked down at his hands, ashamed. I was afraid, he whispered. Afraid that if something was wrong with you, it meant I had failed as a father. And instead of helping you, I hid everything. I convinced myself you'd outgrow it. But I was wrong. I swallowed hard. What happened the night she left? His eyes flickered with pain. You don't want. Yes, I interrupted. I do. He sighed deeply, leaning back against the couch. She tried to take you with her. My stomach dropped. She packed a bag for you, he continued. She told me you needed help, professional help, and that she couldn't trust me to give it to you. She said she was leaving, and she wanted you safe. And you stopped her, I whispered. Yes. I took a step back, gripping the edge of the table for balance. You fought her, I said slowly, as the truth settled in. That night, your shouting, her crying, it wasn't about the marriage. It was about me. He nodded, tears gathering in his eyes. I didn't want to lose you, he said. I thought she was overreacting. I thought she was trying to take you away from me. I didn't understand how scared she was. I didn't understand how scared you were. I pressed a hand to my forehead, trying to make sense of the storm inside me. She left that night, he continued. Without you. Because I refused to let her take you. My voice came out hollow. And you let me believe she abandoned us. I didn't want you to think you were the reason she left, he said. I thought it would break you. But it broke me anyway, I whispered. Silence fell between us, thick, suffocating, irreversible. Finally, I looked at him, my voice barely steady. There's still something you're not telling me. He hesitated. The night your brother fell, he whispered, she saw what happened. She saw you push him. I felt my body go numb. But that's not the worst part, he said, voice cracking. After he fell, you didn't look scared. You looked confused. Like you didn't understand why he was on the ground. Like you didn't know what you'd done. My knees trembled. That's why she thought something was wrong. Not because of the fall itself. But because of the way you stared at him. My breath hitched, sharp and painful, the sound of a truth settling like stone in my chest. You keep saying you don't remember, he whispered. But maybe it's not that you forgot. He looked straight at me. Maybe a part of you never wanted to remember. I couldn't breathe. I felt the air thicken in my lungs, each inhale growing shallower, tighter, like my body was resisting the truth my father had finally forced into the open. I stumbled backward until my shoulder hit the wall, the impact jolting me but doing nothing to steady the chaos inside my head. You think I wanted to hurt him? I managed to say, though my voice trembled uncontrollably. You think I wanted to be, whatever it is you believe I was? My father didn't answer immediately. He wasn't defensive. He wasn't accusatory. He just looked heartbroken. No, he said softly. I never thought you wanted to hurt anyone. That's why it terrified us. Because you didn't choose it. It just happened. His voice cracked slightly on the last word. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, knees pulled up, hands gripping my hair as if holding my skull together would stop the memories from leaking out. But it was too late. Something inside me had cracked open, and pieces, sharp, broken pieces, were cutting their way to the surface. I saw flashes again. My brother screaming. My mother's pale face. My father grabbing my arm. My own shadow lunging forward. What if you're wrong? I whispered. What if it was just a stupid childhood moment? Kids push. Kids lash out. You've built this entire story around something that wasn't even that big. I wish that were true, he replied quietly. Then show me. I snapped, slamming my fist against the floor. Prove it. Because all I have is a bunch of letters written by a woman who left and a father who kept secrets. I need something real. He hesitated. Then, with visible difficulty, he reached into the drawer again and pulled out a small, battered camcorder. My heart stopped. It was the old family recorder. The one my mother used for birthdays, holidays, everyday moments. The one I hadn't seen since before she left. I didn't want you to ever see this, he said. I kept it because I didn't know what else to do with it. Your mother recorded everything. Even the moments she shouldn't have seen. I stared at the device, ice sliding down my spine. What's on it? I whispered. His voice was barely a breath. The truth. He held it out, and after a long moment, I forced myself to take it. The plastic was cold. Too cold. Like it had been waiting in the dark for exactly this moment. I carried it to the kitchen table, plugged it into the charger, and waited. The whir of the device starting up felt deafening in the silent house. As the menu flickered to life, my father called out from the living room. You don't have to watch it alone. But I didn't respond. I felt strangely drawn to the screen, like something inside me needed this. Needed to see what my mind had hidden away. The first clip opened with static. Then, laughter. High, childish laughter. My own, I realized with a sickening drop in my stomach. The screen showed the staircase, the same one just a few feet away from where I sat now. My brother stood halfway up, holding a toy truck, smiling toward the camera. I was behind him. Younger. Smaller. Innocent looking. My mother's voice spoke softly. Say hi, boys. My brother waved at the camera. Then younger me reached for the toy. My breath caught. My brother shook his head, holding it tighter. Younger me said something, too soft to hear. My brother laughed nervously. And then. Younger me lunged. The shove wasn't brutal. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't the act of a violent child. It was sudden. Uncontrolled. Instinctive. My brother's feet slipped. The toy clattered down the steps. He fell. The camera jolted as my mother screamed. The angle shifted, capturing only my face. Not a monster's face. Not a child filled with rage. Just confusion. And fear. And something far worse, detachment. Like I didn't understand what had happened. The video stopped. I didn't realize I was crying until I tasted salt. Footsteps approached behind me. My father. I'm sorry, he whispered. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I felt hollow, like the truth had carved a hole inside me. That wasn't anger, he said gently. It wasn't malice. It was something else. Something we didn't understand. I heard him, I whispered, voice shaking violently. I heard him, and I didn't even know why. You were a child, he said. A child who needed help that we didn't know how to give. I turned to him slowly, tears blurring my vision. I'm scared, I said. I'm scared that part of me is still like that. That it could happen again. He knelt down painfully beside me, placing a trembling hand on my shoulder. The worst thing you can do is face this alone, he said. Because the truth isn't that you were dangerous. The truth is that you were hurting, and none of us saw the signs. His voice lowered. But there's one more thing you need to know. Something your mother never wrote down. I looked at him, breath shallow. What? I whispered. He hesitated. The episodes didn't start with you, he said. They run in the family. Everything inside me went still. Who? I asked. He swallowed hard. Me, he said quietly. And someone else before me. Someone who left a mark on this house long before you were born. My blood ran cold. And that's why your mother truly left, he whispered. Because she believed the darkness in this family wasn't finished yet. The room felt suddenly smaller, the air thick, suffocating. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just fighting my past. I was fighting my inheritance. For a few seconds, I wasn't sure I'd heard him correctly. My father's voice echoed in my mind, the episodes didn't start with you. They run in the family. It felt like someone had reached into my chest and twisted something vital, something fragile. A truth so heavy, so buried, it didn't just hurt. It reshaped everything. I stared at him, stunned into silence. You. I finally whispered. You had episodes too. He nodded, slowly, painfully. Not as often. But yes. I learned to hide them. Learned to control them. Or at least. I thought I did. A bitter laugh escaped him, though it wasn't humorous. It was hollow, the kind of sound a man makes when he realizes the lies he's told himself have finally collapsed. That's why I recognized the signs in you, he continued. It wasn't just denial that kept me from admitting it. It was shame. And fear. I felt dizzy. Who else? He hesitated. A shadow crossed his expression, the kind of shadow that doesn't belong to one painful memory, but to many. My father. I nearly choked. I had only vague, blurred memories of my grandfather, a stern man with an unpredictable temper, the type of man whose presence made rooms feel smaller. He died when I was young, but the tension he carried had seeped into the walls of our home, into the way my father walked, into the way my family breathed. You never told me, I whispered. How could I, he said softly. How could I tell my son that the thing he feared most wasn't something he did, but something he inherited? My chest tightened painfully. I pressed my palm over my heart, trying to steady the rhythm. The truth wasn't just about a childhood accident or buried memories. It was about a lineage, a pattern, something passed down like a curse. Something I had never known was shaping me. My father watched me, concern etched into every line of his face. I didn't want you to carry this. I wanted it to end with me. I told myself that if I never spoke of it, if I pretended hard enough, maybe you'd grow up normal. And did I? I asked, my voice cracking. He looked down. That was answer enough. I paced the room, trying to breathe, trying to think. The air felt heavier with every step. A cold sweat gathered on my palms, and my throat tightened with every inhale. It felt like the walls were closing in, like the house itself knew this truth long before I did. So the night Mom left, I said, it wasn't because she didn't love us. No, he whispered. She left because she loved you too much to watch this family destroy you the same way it destroyed us. I felt something inside me break, quietly, almost gently. A grief I never knew I carried rose up, suffocating, overwhelming. All these years, I whispered. I hated her. I thought she abandoned me. My father wiped his eyes. She believed leaving was the only way to break the cycle. She thought she could take you with her, give you a chance to escape, before you became like us. I sat down, gripping the edge of the table. My heart hammered painfully, my pulse loud in my ears. But she didn't take me, I said. No. Because I wouldn't let her. His voice cracked again, and for the first time, I saw him not as the father who raised me, not as the man who failed me, but as a broken person shaped by the same darkness I was now beginning to recognize. What happened to the episodes? I asked. Yours. My grandfather's. Did they ever stop? He shook his head slowly. They changed. They got quieter. They hid themselves. Buried deep. But they never went away entirely. And mine? I asked. Do you think I still? He cut me off gently. Do you feel anger you can't explain? Fear you can't place? Guilt without memory? I closed my eyes. The answer was yes. Even now. Especially now. He continued, his voice low. The episodes weren't violence. They were breaks. Cracks in the mind. Moments when we weren't ourselves. Moments when something buried inside us took over. I shivered. You're talking like it's a curse. He nodded. Sometimes it felt like one. A long silence settled over us. He struggled to breathe, each exhale softer than the last. I moved closer, unsure whether he needed help or simply company. I tried to raise you differently, he whispered. I tried to be better than him. But I failed. And now, you're carrying the pieces of all of us. His words hit me like a blow. I don't want this, I said. I don't want to be like any of you. You're not, he replied. Not if you face it. Not if you fight it. Not if you understand it before it understands you. I stared at him, unsure whether to feel angry or relieved. Your mother believed the only way to stop the cycle was to leave, he said. I believed the only way was to hide it. And what do you believe now? I asked. He closed his eyes. That the truth is the only chance left. My gaze drifted back to the stack of unopened letters. Truth. Not comfort. Not protection. Not denial. Truth. But truth could destroy me. And a part of me wondered if I wanted to be destroyed, so I wouldn't have to carry this weight anymore. Before I could speak, my father coughed violently, his whole body shaking. I rushed to his side, helping him sit upright as he gasped for air. You need a doctor, I said. He shook his head. No. I need you to listen. His grip tightened around my wrist. There is one more letter, he whispered. The one I never opened. The one your mother wrote the night she left. My blood ran cold. Where is it? I asked. He pointed weakly toward the staircase. In her box, he said. Up there. The same staircase where the truth began. The same staircase where my memory ended. And in that moment, I realized. The letter upstairs wasn't just the key to understanding my past. It was the key to understanding myself. I stood at the bottom of the staircase for a long time. The house was silent, far too silent, except for the faint wheeze of my father's breathing from the living room. The steps looked steeper than I remembered, narrower, darker. Maybe it was just the dim light. Or maybe I was seeing them through the eyes of the frightened child I used to be. Either way, my legs felt heavy. The letter was up there. The truth my mother had tried to give me. The truth my father had buried. The truth I'd spent years unknowingly running from. And suddenly, the weight of it felt unbearable. Still. I climbed. One step. Another. Slowly. Carefully. The wood creaked beneath me, old joints complaining. My fingers grazed the railing, and a strange sensation jolted through me, like touching a memory. I saw flashes. My brother's laughter. My small hands reaching. His fear. The fall. The silence after. I forced myself to breathe, deep and steady. These were fragments, not the whole. Memories, not identity. Past, not destiny. When I reached the top, the hallway stretched out before me, just as I remembered, too narrow, too dim, lined with doors that once led to bedrooms full of warmth and nightmares alike. My mother's room was the last door on the right. I hadn't stepped inside it since the night she left. The handle felt cold when I touched it. For a moment, I hesitated. Then I pushed the door open. Dust motes drifted lazily through a thin beam of sunlight that slipped between the curtains. The room was frozen in time. Her side of the bed was still neatly made. Her old dressing table sat untouched, the chair slightly pulled out as if she'd only just stepped away. A faint scent of lavender still lingered, impossible, after all these years, and yet undeniably present. My throat tightened. I crossed the room and knelt beside the wooden chest at the foot of the bed. It was small, carved with delicate patterns, my mother's favorite box. She used to keep her letters inside it. Her jewelry. Photos from before everything fell apart. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside were dozens of envelopes tied together with a faded ribbon. Most were addressed to no one, journals, pieces of her thoughts, fragments of a woman drowning in fear and hope. But one envelope lay separately at the bottom. The paper slightly crumpled, the ink smudged. My name was written on it. And underneath, in smaller letters. The night I left. My breath hitched. I reached for it, my fingers brushing the edge. A strange calm settled over me, a quiet certainty that whatever was inside would change everything. And for the first time, I didn't feel afraid. I felt ready. I opened it slowly. My boy. If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and your father has finally told you some version of the truth. I don't know what he said or what he kept. I only know that you deserve to hear my words, not through him but from me. I swallowed hard. That night wasn't your fault. None of it was. You were a child struggling with something too big for you, something passed down through generations of men who never faced it. Your father tried to protect you in the only way he knew, even if he didn't understand what you were going through. I left because I was afraid the pattern would repeat. I was afraid of losing you, not to violence, but to the silence that swallowed this family whole. I felt tears building in my eyes. You didn't push your brother because you were dangerous. You pushed him because you were overwhelmed, confused, terrified of the anger you didn't understand. What I saw in your eyes that night wasn't evil. It was fear. Fear of yourself. Fear of what lived inside this house. My hands shook as I continued. I left to break the pattern. I left to make sure you would grow up without being trapped inside the same cycle your father and grandfather lived in. I thought taking you with me was the only way. When your father wouldn't let me, I left without you, but I never stopped loving you. I wrote every week. I waited for the day you'd call me. But he never gave you my letters. He was trying to protect you from the truth, and in doing so he only made it harder. The words blurred. Tears fell onto the paper. I want you to know this, you are not defined by what happened. You are not broken. You are not your father. You are not your grandfather. You are not the darkness they carried. You are more than the fear you feel. More than the memories you lost. More than the pain that shaped you. I exhaled shakily. One day, you'll face what happened. And when you do, I hope you remember my words, you are not alone. And you never were. The letter ended there. I sat in silence, clutching the paper, feeling something shift, something deep and long buried. Not relief. Not forgiveness. But space. A small, fragile space where understanding might one day grow. I stood slowly and looked around the room. My mother's presence lingered, gentle and quiet and heartbreakingly real. For the first time since I'd returned to this house, I felt something loosen inside me. Not everything. But something. As I walked back down the hallway, each step felt lighter, even though the weight of the truth still pressed against me. My father was waiting at the bottom of the stairs, his eyes full of fear, guilt, hope. I held up the letter. She didn't blame me, I whispered. He nodded, tears welling. And for the first time, my voice broke. I don't think I blame myself either. His shoulders shook as he exhaled, a sound halfway between a sob and a sigh of relief. The past wasn't gone. The truth wasn't gentle. But the darkness didn't feel infinite anymore. I was finally stepping out of its shadow. My father watched me descend the stairs as though he were seeing a ghost return to life. His shoulders, once broad and unshakable, were hunched and fragile. His breaths came shallow, uneven. For a moment I stood at the bottom step, holding the letter tightly, feeling its weight in my hand and in my chest. I read it, I said softly. He swallowed hard. I'm glad. I walked back into the living room and sat across from him. The space between us, once a chasm built of resentment, fear, and years of silence, now felt smaller. Not healed, not yet, but reachable. She didn't leave because of me, I said. No, he whispered. She left because she loved you more than she loved either of us. She wanted you safe. I know that now. He let out a trembling breath, like he had been holding it for 20 years. We sat there for a long time, neither of us speaking, the quiet stretching like a fragile thread. For once, it didn't feel suffocating. It felt necessary. A space to let everything settle, the truth, the grief, the forgiveness that neither of us had dared to imagine. After a while, he shifted slightly, his eyes drifting to the window. The sun had climbed higher, painting the room with gentle light. You look like her, he whispered. You always have. I blinked back tears. It was the first time he'd ever said something like that. I miss her, I said. So do I. His voice cracked. There was something deeply human in that moment, two people who had built their lives around unsaid words finally speaking with honesty. The pain didn't vanish. It lingered. But in the lingering, something softened. Why didn't you ever tell me she wrote to me? I asked quietly. Because I was ashamed, he admitted. Ashamed of how I treated her. Ashamed of what happened that night. And ashamed that I thought I could protect you by burying the truth. I nodded, absorbing the complexity of his confession. I wasn't ready to forgive him completely. Maybe I never would. But I understood him. For the first time in my life, I truly understood him. And understanding was its own kind of mercy. I don't hate you, I said. His shoulders shook, and he covered his face with trembling hands. It took him a moment to speak. I hated myself enough for the both of us, he whispered. We sat in silence again, but this time it felt different, peaceful, even. Like two people sitting with their scars instead of hiding them. Eventually, he leaned back, exhausted. His breaths grew slower. I reached for a blanket and draped it over him, trying to offer the kind of care I had once thought neither of us deserved. He caught my wrist lightly. Thank you, he murmured. For what? For coming back. For listening. For giving me a chance to say goodbye. A lump formed in my throat. I'm not going anywhere. You might have to, he said softly, almost like a confession. Soon. I didn't want to hear those words. I didn't want to imagine a world without him, not after finally understanding him, finally seeing the man beneath the anger and silence. But I knew he was right. His time was limited. Our time was limited. Then let's make the most of what we have left, I said. He smiled, small, tired, but real. I'd like that. In the following days, we talked more than we ever had. About my childhood. My mother. His father. The fear that had shaped our family for generations. The silence that had infected every corner of our lives. He apologized, not dramatically, not all at once, but in small, honest moments. And I apologized too, not because I was guilty of the things he feared, but because I had spent so long punishing myself for secrets that weren't mine to carry. We cooked simple meals. We walked slowly around the yard when he had the strength. We sat on the porch in the evenings, breathing in the cool air. It felt like reclaiming time that had been stolen from us, time we didn't know we needed. Sometimes I caught him studying me, like he was searching for something. Redemption, maybe. Or peace. But each time, he simply nodded to himself, as if satisfied. One evening, a week after I found the letter, he asked me to sit beside him on the couch. His breathing was shallower than usual. I need you to promise me something, he said. What is it? Don't carry this alone. Whatever you think lives inside you, it's not your fate. It's not a curse. It's just pain. And pain can be healed. I nodded, swallowing hard. Promise me, he insisted, gripping my hand with surprising strength. I promise. He closed his eyes, relief settling into his features. Good. Then there's hope. We sat together as the sun dipped below the trees, casting the house in warm, golden light. He leaned his head back, eyes half closed. "Do you think she'd be proud of you?" he asked quietly. I thought about my mother, her letters, her hope, her fear. "Yes," I whispered. "I think she would." He exhaled, a long, peaceful breath, and for a moment, it felt like the entire house sighed with him. He didn't speak again. His hand loosened. His breathing softened. And then it stopped. I sat there for a long time, not crying, not panicking, just holding his hand, letting the silence wrap around us like a final embrace. It didn't feel like abandonment. It didn't feel like loss. It felt like release. A week later, I stood alone at the edge of the forest behind our house, the place where I used to run when everything felt unbearable. The air smelled of pine and earth and something new. Something open. I held my mother's final letter in my hands. "You wanted me to break the pattern," I whispered. "I will." The wind rustled through the branches, soft and gentle, like a response. I closed my eyes and let the past settle, not forgotten, not erased, but understood. When I opened my eyes again, the world felt different. Not lighter, not simpler, but clearer. And for the first time in my life, I stepped forward without running from anything. I wasn't my father. I wasn't my grandfather. I wasn't the boy who hurt his brother. I wasn't the fear I carried. I was myself. Finally. And I was enough.